Nowadays, Brazil is facing a challenge in fiscal adjustments, while the finance minister is trying to convince some politicians about the necessity of these measures. I'm Luciene Miranda, and this is São Paulo Direct by Dukascopy TV in a partnership with La Presse. And I'll talk now to Paulo Correa, Secretary of Economic Affairs of the Ministry of Finance. Please tell the main difficulty in convincing the politicians about the necessity of these measures.
Well, we think that politicians are essentially convinced about the importance of the fiscal adjustment in Brazil. The challenge is to accommodate different visions, different interests, as in any democratic state, and therefore find the right way to do it. So it's less an issue of if we should do it or not, and more an issue of how we do it. And given the challenges that we're facing, not only in Brazil, but in the international economy, that reduces a little bit the scope that we have and increase the cost of this adjustment, it's more or less natural that we're facing some challenges to identify the right sustainable way to do the fiscal adjustment. Unnecessary to insist on the issue that, from a point of view of the government, bringing the ratio of debt to GDP to levels that are sustainable over the long term are a priority. Have been a priority since the beginning and will continue to be a priority of this administration.
And there's a lot of pressure from the society to some cuts in the spending, the government spending. What about it?
So we have been cutting a lot of expenditures over the past months, since the beginning of new administration of President Dilma Rousseff, including important cuts in programs that have been advocated as highlights of the previous administration, in Minha Casa Minha Vida, in Pronatec. These are programs that have an important value for the Brazilian society, but still, given the fiscal limitations, have been cut. The fiscal issue in Brazil at this stage is less on how much we cut now, and more how we address a structural problem of Brazilian expenditures, which is essentially a growth that in real terms over years unsustainable. So it's not as much what we can do in the short term to achieve the primary surplus, which has another angle to that, which is the reduction of revenues due to recession. So in the short term we are doing the best we can to achieve the best results, but we should not forget about the importance of the structural factors that are pushing now and in the future. We'll continue to push expenditures up, and part of them has to do with the social pensions and the importance of pension reforms. Part has to do with mandated, constitutionally mandated expenditures that are to some extent indexed to the minimum wage. So there are several structural issues that need to be addressed over time, so that you bring structurally, and not only today but in the coming years, the relation between expenditures and revenues into levels that are compatible with the debt sustainability of the country. This, I think, is the most important challenge that we face right now.
Are there plans of the ministry with the central bank about the foreign exchange, the relation dollar and real?
So we saw in last few weeks an overshooting of exchange rate due to some political volatility. That's not good. However, it's the belief of this administration that, number one, the exchange rate needs to find its own equilibrium level, and to the extent that you bring back fiscal sustainability, the idea is that the exchange rate should be stable over time. The exchange rate is the basic price through which you manage your relationship with with foreign markets, with the international economy. So it's very important for foreign investors, for Brazilian exporters, for Brazilian importers, for businessmen in general, that they can plan over time based on an exchange rate that is more or less stable. So the primary objective is to find the fundamentals that will allow the exchange rate to be stable over time, which will in turn allow businessmen to plan their export activities, their import activities, and therefore the growth strategies. Brazil has a very strong position in terms of reserves, and the central bank and treasury have shown in the past that they are prepared to act under certain circumstances. I don't see why this could not happen again. I'm not saying that will, but it has demonstrated the readiness of the government to act under certain difficult moments to stabilize and calm down the market.
What about another pressure from the society against the creation of CPMF, another tax?
So nobody likes paying taxes. I mean, you don't like, I don't like, but everybody is, people are willing to pay taxes when they understand what is the purpose of that. And I think one of the challenges that we have is to show how CPMF is the best option available right now to bring fiscal sustainability in the short term as a bridge over a period of 3-4 years. And during this period, what is the homework that we need to do? What I just spoke a few minutes ago in terms of the structural reforms. So the CPMF is not a solution, it's a temporary, at best, is a temporary measure that will help to give us some time to work on the structural initiatives that will, those initiatives indeed bring the relationship between expenditures and revenues to levels consistent with good and declining debt to GDP ratios. So if we need to do a better job, we now Ministry of Finance as a team, perhaps we can do and should do a better job in explaining to the society how the CPMF, among the other different issues, alternatives, is the best that we have right now. Maybe it's not good, maybe people don't want an increase in taxes. I think this is perfectly understandable. However, that's, together with initiatives to keep costs down, is the best alternative that we have in the short term to help to manage and achieve a better level of revenues in the short term. Again, to the extent that we manage to explain to the society why this is a temporary initiative and why we need it, and more important, what we plan to do in the next 1, 2, 3 years in order to bring the structural expenditures under control, I think would make it easier for society as a whole to support this tax increase.
So the ministry is ready to dialogue always when necessary?
So the minister and the whole team are always ready to dialogue when necessary. We think there is no other alternative in this process. It's good that it's like that. You don't want to live in a society where you don't need to dialogue and negotiate to do this type of important initiatives. So we are ready to dialogue, to negotiate. In fact, the minister has been present in Congress, and as much as it has been requested to, has been present to several business gatherings, so trying to respond to any invitation and any opportunity that we have to explain the fiscal strategy, and more than the fiscal strategy, also to explain a little bit how we see the long-term and growth coming, and how the government could do a little bit of microeconomic reforms as well to promote or to enable productivity growth, and therefore the growth of Brazilian economy on a more sustainable basis.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Luciane Miranda to São Paulo Direct by Dukascopy TV.